Hi, and thanks for joining us. Today we're talking to Brandon Searle, who's the Innovation Director at the University of New Brunswick Offsite Construction Research Center. Brendan is an expert in prefab and offsite. He's worked in the industry for over 12 years in a number of different roles. He's an extremely knowledgeable person on this subject matter. He's a great guy. We had a great conversation about trends and systems in the market, cost of materials, the impact of prefab and mod on affordable housing, the opportunity there. We talked about automation and jobs and the impact that's coming, I think, to the construction industry as we move things off-site. And we also talked about the National Infrastructure Assessment that the Minister of Infrastructure just published, soliciting the industry for feedback on their plan going into 2050. So I had a great conversation with Brendan, and I hope you enjoy it. Well, I'm here today with Brandon Searle, who's the Innovation Director at the University of New Brunswick Offsite Construction Research Center. I think I got that correct, right, Brandon?
Yep.
We obviously tried a couple times before we accepted this take. Brandon is on our board. He's served on a number of other public boards, public entities. Really thankful to have his perspective on the board. He's obviously has really deep expertise in the prefab, modular, and offsite space, and hoping to have a quick chat with you today about your experience and the trends in the market. So how did I do with the introduction?
Good. Thank you, Tom. Thanks for having me. It's good to join you today and look forward to chatting about prefab, offsite, and infrastructure in general, I guess.
So maybe we could start by just, elaborate a little bit on your CV. Where have you spent your career thus far?
Yeah, so I graduated from University of New Brunswick with a degree in civil engineering and a diploma in management and entrepreneurship. After that, I went to consulting, where I worked for a company based out of New Zealand called Opus International Consultants. We were then acquired by WSP, and while I was there, I was more working in the infrastructure management space. So a lot of my work was with municipalities, provincial entities, federal organizations who manage public infrastructure. After about 5 years with Opus-WSP, this opportunity came up at the University of New Brunswick, where they were creating an offsite construction research center. That was able to happen due to the investment from Osco Construction Group, which they invested $2 million over 5 years to create the center. And our whole goal is to do applied research and partner with industry to innovate and move things forward, I guess.
Awesome. So you must get exposed to all sorts of companies that are doing research in this space or bringing products to market. And I've noticed, across Canada, there's, multiple, the major sort of incumbent general contractors have made big investments in prefab systems, investing in plants. So it seems to be a market that's growing. What's your perspective with all your research and the companies that you're encountering? What are the trends? Where's the market going? What does the investment look like? What are the types of systems that are emerging?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, obviously, over the past few years, it's definitely picked up momentum. Just whether you want to call it modular buildings, manufactured buildings, offsite construction. You go to the UK, they call it modern methods of construction. Anyways, so it's picking up a lot of momentum. That kit was partially driven, I believe, by publications by The Economist, Dodge and Data Analytics, McKinsey and Company. And then you see CSA coming out with their research report on high-rise modular. They have their new standard, which our CanBIM think tank is involved in as well, the Z250. And from my perspective, I mean, our research has been, we have about 15 to 20 research projects on the go at any one time. And I mean, we're growing. But our research has been very much focused in technology and implementing technology with these, we'll call them offsite construction companies, a lot of which are construction companies that were doing things the traditional way and are investing in technology to eventually move activities offsite or improve productivity. And that's really been the focus. Similar to any other industry, there or any other kind of sector in construction, I would say they haven't realized all the opportunities with technology and what we can do. So that's where a lot of our research has been focused. There's obviously the whole material side of things as well. Everyone can talk to how the cost of building materials just keeps going up and up with the pandemic, and it doesn't seem like it's going to stop anytime soon. So there's an opportunity for research and using cold form steel, different materials in your wood to create wood composites, structural steel connections, and increasing kind of R&D in that area to increase efficiency and use the material more effectively. And then when I'm talking about our productivity research, it's not only on your output out of your facility. It's also about efficiencies in your material waste, and also safety. So we look at the quality, safety for the workers, ensuring that whatever they're doing is ergonomic, and that will ultimately increase efficiencies and better products at the end of the day.
Awesome. Yeah, I read in Forbes this morning that lumber prices have increased 43%, I think, and some economists are predicting it's going to go 235% before it's done. So it'd be interesting to see how that pushes the research and R&D around what materials to use. So how do you think? I mean, this whole trend, obviously, it's about building faster, building better, bringing product to market faster, in a more predictable way. How do you think this is going to affect affordable housing? Do you think it's going to help to resolve that issue? I mean, Canada wants to go from, I think, 36, 38 million people currently to 100 million by 2100. We have to build a lot more housing stock.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I think modular or offsite construction has a role to play in filling that gap or filling that need for housing. The issues that I would see is more vertical buildings instead of building out. I'm out. I don't know if we mentioned, but I'm in Fredericton, New Brunswick, so in Atlantic, Canada. We still have a lot of land to build on. I would say I think New Brunswick's like 70% forest. But you go to these large urban centers, and we got to continue building up, I would say. And that's where the high-rise modular standard comes in. It's also, or one thing that in order to look at modular or offsite construction as a method to fill the need for affordable housing, we got to get away from the traditional point of view of what modular housing is. So, post World War II, offsite construction is not a new thing. Sears in the 40s had a kit home that they would ship you on a train and you'd build it yourself. But the perception, I guess, was, mobile buildings or mini homes, and now we're getting into permanent homes. And like, there's companies out west, there's companies we work with locally who are building 2-story, 3-story homes, all off-site. And then you look, there's modular manufacturers who are building Marriott hotels. There's a DMD modular out of Poland. They're building, I think it's going to be the largest modular building in New York right now. I want to say 80 some stories, but I could be way off there, so maybe we can cut that part. But anyways, there's a role that offsite construction can play in affordable housing. But one thing we have to keep in mind is obviously the societal changes that come with it. We can't just be building houses to combat homelessness or ensure everyone has a roof over their head. That's part of the issue, but we have to think about the full society and how things need to change culturally in order to combat this affordable housing issue. And I think that's important to note. It's not just about building buildings.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So how do you, I mean, this is kind of tied into that in a way, but how do you think that this whole trend is going to affect jobs? I mean, obviously the whole world's, I mean, every business is pushing for higher levels of automation, whether it's digital automation to, decrease the amount of effort it is to realize a design or come up with a plan for something. And then there's also the physical automation. I mean, as we move to offsite, obviously that creates the opportunity to mechanize the construction process in a factory environment. How do you think this trend is going to affect jobs overall?
Yeah, so it's a good point you bring up because I think again the perception can be that automation is replacing jobs, and you hear I'll say my grandmother, a baby boomer, she'll say, I'll never go through the automatic cashier at Shoppers Drug Mart because it's taken away a job from someone. Well, that's not necessarily the case. These companies are investing in automation because there is no labor available. And I talked to an economist here in New Brunswick. They had a client who worked in the fishing industry, and they couldn't find enough workers for their processes, their manufacturing plant essentially. So he had to buy an automatic line to replace 25 jobs. And it wasn't that he was replacing 25 jobs. He didn't want to do that, and actually paying for the equipment, it's a lot more overhead and actually ended up costing more than having 25 employees, but the workers aren't there. So I think there's a balance between automation and growing through employment and people, and there's also the balance between using technology to increase efficiency for the laborers or the tradespeople on the assembly lines. So that's through exoskeletons and different robotics and things like that, where these workers are experiencing health issues later in life, and there's automation can help combat that, I guess. But yeah, I think there's a role to play for both automation and people. And the other thing to keep in mind, there's a company out of the UK, Lang O'Rourke. They're very large, and they invested 150 million pounds to create a fully automated prefab plant. And I think I don't know for certain but my understanding is they might have misread demand versus supply, and it's almost too efficient for what the market can handle. So there's definitely a balance there. And Ellis Don, ED Modular, they have their new plant in Hamilton, and it has a lot of automation, and it's important that they build that queue of projects to be able to sustain and carry the cost of the overhead. And if you look back at the history of offsite over the last 400 years, there's a lot of ebbs and flows. There's a lot of companies that went under, and part of it is because they missed that mark on how much overhead they can afford and how much the market is going to demand from them. So
yeah, it's a different type of business altogether. Manufacturing versus mobilizing on a construction site to assemble a building in place. It's a very different type of business model, and I think Lang O'Rourke was certainly on the bleeding edge, making massive investments, and it'll be interesting to see what happens over time there. But certainly I think it was the Shard Tower in London. I mean, incredible work that they did there, incredible project, and really great example of prefab. Mm-hmm. So I guess my last question, I know that we've asked all of our board members and our think tank chairs to review the Building in Canada, What We Want in 2050 document that was released by the Minister of Infrastructure, which kind of asks the industry to assess, review the assessment. Canada's done an assessment of our long-term vision and of all our national infrastructure. The goal obviously is to improve coordination among infrastructure owners and funders and determine the best ways to fund and finance infrastructure. So from your perspective, thinking about prefab, mod, offsite, what do you think the trends are, and how should we respond to that request from the Minister of Infrastructure?
Yeah, so I mean, I reviewed it a few times, and I'm gonna maybe take off my prefab offsite hat for a second, talk more about just my infrastructure management side. And I know we have an asset management think tank, and I'm sure they're thinking similar in a similar way to myself. But one thing that really scared me is that document talked about the needs in establishing a long-term vision. Historically, investment into capital projects has always been there, but the investment to maintain the infrastructure throughout its life cycle has lacked, and it's fallen on municipalities or small local governments to maintain this infrastructure to support services across our country. So one thing I'd like to see is a more focused approach on long-term investment, and not just, spending $1 billion for this new bridge. Well, how are you going to maintain the new bridge over the next 100 years, because it's going to live that long? And then going back to how offsite and prefab can play a role. So a lot of this assessment talks about investing in services, affordable housing, childcare, etc. And then again, it goes back into the whole idea of offsite can have a role in combating the affordable housing crisis that is coming to Canada, and it's going to continue to get worse, I imagine. But we have to look at it from the whole societal landscape and think about how is that going to impact jobs, how that going to impact the individuals, and ensure that it's affordable. And going back to the material pricing, so there's this massive demand for affordable housing, but where's the material coming from? We already are in need of more lumber. We're already in, or steel or concrete or whatever it is. And we have to get more efficient in how we build and the materials we use. So that's an important thing to note as well. Yeah.
So the efficiency needs to carry, across not just the manufacturing and assembly of the materials to realize the product, but it's got to be pushed down into the supply chain as well. And I think you have a very strong point there in that, we dump the stimulus money on the market all at once, and we tend to shock the system, which drives commodity prices up. And the amount of skilled labor that's available in the market at any given time can't respond to the demand, and consequently the quality of the work and the predictability of the construction process diminishes. So I agree with you in that it'd be better. I mean, obviously we need the stimulus money now, but it'd be better if we were thinking about trickling this out and building our capability over time, sort of brick by brick, so that we can bring up the amount of labor that's in the market and help the supply chain absorb those shocks as well and build up their capability.
Yeah.
Brandon, thank you so much for joining us today. Fantastic to talk to you. Thank you so much for the time that you volunteer to the board at CanBIM. Really appreciate it, and I look forward to your continued involvement. So thank you so much for today.
Thanks, Tom. It was fun.
Yep. Okay, that was a great conversation. Brandon, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. As you know, as an organization, we're very active. We're doing a number of events every single month. So please stay tuned to our YouTube channel, our LinkedIn feed. We're on pretty much every social media platform. Obviously, subscribe to our mailing list on our website. It's easy to find. And we have a number of different activities that we would love for you to participate. We have a certification program. If you're focused on maintaining an accommodating environment and setting up collaboration across projects and project lifecycle, maybe consider the certification program. We also have a number of think tanks that are soliciting industry professionals to participate. So all that's on our website. You can go check it out. I want to thank our sponsors for supporting this initiative. We can't do it without you. Thank you so much. And I want to remind everyone that we have our Innovation Spotlight 2021 that's now available. You can go on our website and order the document and check it out. This features a number of different really innovative initiatives from our membership and from the community at large from across Canada. Fantastic articles in that. So please order a copy. And just one more request to everyone. If you get value out of this, out of these talks, if you get value out of participating in CanBIM, please tell a friend, bring a friend to the organization. We want to drive our mission, and the more people that are participating, the better. So thank you so much, and we'll talk soon. Building Transformations is a CanBIM production hosted by me, Thomas Strong, produced by Jerry Latman, visual and graphic effects by Allison Burgess, scripting by Joseph Watson, post-production supervision by Sergey Greshko, editing by Theodore Bazaire, and visual effects and editing by Musafar Malik.